Do you even remember these Pokemon by False Swipe Gaming?
So the patrons voted for Luminion, but you already know how
Fish?
such a video would go.
Dude, I'm 5 seconds into a video and there's already a fish. What is happening with my life?
Luminion is famously terrible, except it's not quite so terrible as to be memorable, which makes it even worse. It's a bland, forgettable nothing of a Pokemon. So rather than listlessly chronicle its non-existence in the competitive scene or make a joke out of it, we discussed it with the patrons, and we've put together something a little different. Today, we're going to be fixing the Luminions of the world, but not just Pokemon that are bad, but those that are forgettable. Luminion has, alongside perhaps Maractus, ironically become known for being so forgettable. But there were plenty of other nondescript Pokemon overlooked for generations and generations that we only knew to put in this video because a stroll through the Pokedex reminded us of their existence. So in fixing these Pokemon, we're not going to give them evolutions or mega evolutions, warranted though they may be, but that's too simple. We're going to limit ourselves to buffs deemed reasonable by our discretion, but we're also going to completely overhaul these Pokemon into distinct new forms so that they can become viable, or at least memorable. So today, we are fixing forgettable Pokemon, working with what we can call the Luminion theorem.
I like this. I really like this. I had once upon a time thought of how you fix something like Flygon, right? And, you know, Flygon, very forgettable because one generation later, Garchomp just kind of comes and steals its thunder, and it just doesn't do the same things that Garchomp can do. And there's, you know, no shortage of ground dragon types, right? You know, depending on the format you're in, like Zygarde's a thing, right? But, you know, Flygon, a lot of people like it. And you have Trapinch and Vibrava that have hidden abilities and multiple abilities, but Flygon only gets Levitate. And it's just like, well, why don't you give it something like Tinted Lens? Why don't you give it something like Sandveil, right? Play into that Antlion kind of thing, right? Or you can play, you know, Tough Claws, maybe play into the dragon aspect of it a little bit more, which it's super cool to think about these things. So this is actually really right up my alley.
And just like we're gonna fix these Pokemon, fix your look with this video sponsor, Manscaped. Manscaped is back with a game changer. The Manscaped Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra and the Beard Hedger. Two products because using the same trimmer for both your face and below the waist is gross. For your nether region, the Lawnmower 5.0 has two interchangeable skin-safe blades if you prefer precision or smoothness. The updated trimmer blade features longer, wider, and rounded teeth that cut through hair with ease. Then there's also the foil blade, which is designed to leave you with a finish that's irresistibly sleek and utterly bare. Use it to go beyond the boundaries of your typical trim that's achieved with the trimmer blade. But wait, there's more. With 3 different comb options, included a fixed length comb and 2 adjustable combs, you have complete control over your preferred hair length. It also has a dual LED spotlight so you can groom even those darkest corners. Now let's talk about the Beard Hedger. This has been my go-to for a year now to keep my facial hair sleek without shaving it off completely. Featuring a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade with 20 different length options selected effortlessly with the zoom wheel, you can achieve any look. And of course, both devices are wireless, hold up to a 60-minute runtime on a single charge, and are waterproof. So if you want to look clean in both areas and also support the channel to help us produce more content, bundle up and get 20% off plus free international shipping when you use code FALSESWIPE at checkout. Head over to manscaped.com and get your hands on the Beard and Balls bundle today.
I liked it. 9 out of 10. It was about, what, 30 seconds or so for the ad read. Fairly succinct, right? Compact. Gets all the information it needs to be across. I'm trying to think what would make it a 10 out of 10, though. Like, I'm thinking about it. This is a solid 9 out of 10 read. I liked it. It's missing something, though. I liked the visual aids that went along with it. It matched what he was talking about, right? Just from a, like, cohesive standpoint, right? Like, if he's talking about all those dark corners and it's a well-lit room, right? Doesn't necessarily make sense now, does it? Which, I mean, it made sense. Demonstration made sense. Script made sense. I don't know. Like, it's missing something, and I don't know what it is. Otherwise, very good ad read, though. Fish!
Let's start off with the not-so-big fish itself. Luminion is the quintessential generic water type. Its distinguishing traits being, well, you run into it and its pre-evolution Finneon when heading to Victory Road and Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Yeah. So there's that. Its base HP, attack, and special attack
69. Nice. Nice. 3 69s this fish has got. Nice. Times 3.
that are all 69, which is funny if you're an
Nice.
adolescent, literally or mentally. We're really trying
You know what? Damn, you right.
here, but yeah, that's it. Luminion's presence is zilch. It is a masterstroke in forgettability. It is banal, boring, flavorless. It is off-brand cereal. It is the person whose face you forget while looking at them. If you put Luminion through the It's a Wonderful Life scenario, where it sees what life would have been like without its presence, nothing would change. Okay, that last part was probably a little cruel. We're sure someone out there was very attached to their in-game Finneon turned Luminion, which wound up ice beaming Cynthia's Garchomp or something. But you get the picture. After 2 generations of nothingness, it actually did have one solid niche in the competitive scene.
Didn't it get like Defog or Swift Swim? I can't remember. Like it got something that it was like super niche in.
Was a nice defogger in Oraz PU, so that's cool. However, even its tenure there was bland. Defogging, scalding, and U-turning is nice and all, but it was really more there to facilitate its teammates. You don't have to be thrilling to be good, of course, but that was the end of Luminion's time in the competitive scene. The next gen of PU sent it right back to untiered. It then took Gen 8 off and is untiered again now in Gen 9. So how do we...
I don't know how to feel about that. Look at the scales. Why does Luminion's model go that hard? It is an Fimsh. Just Fimsh Pokemon. Just is a fish. Why does that go hard?
So how do we build a niche out of Luminion? And moreover, how do we make it more interesting? We could just buff its stats enough to where it do that whole generic water defogger thing in PU.
So I disagree with that though, inherently. Let's look at Luminion really quick. Luminion. We're going to go Pokemon database because I actually like them better. Because Pokemon generally doesn't touch stats. They touch stats on things like Masquerain got a buff, right? Aegislash got a stat nerf. Like they don't touch stats pretty much. It gets Swift Swim, Storm Drain, and Water Veil. I mean, Storm Drain's kind of cool as an ability, right? The ability to it's Gastrodon, right? You draw it in and then it boosts your water special. It was just a special attack, right? Swift Swim in rain, your speed is doubled. Double 91 isn't inherently bad, but I mean, you don't really have the special attack or the attack stats to really make use of it. Water Veil prevents status, right? Yeah, prevents Pokemon from getting a burn. Oh no, it prevents burn. I think that's a waste of a hidden ability. I mean, if we go to the Gen 9 Learn set, what does it get? Gust, Soak is kind of interesting. Bounce, interesting. U-turn, cool. It's Tailwind, that's kind of cool. A Tailwind off of a rain boosted Luminion could be kind of cute, right? That could be cute. But we're going like, what does it get? Tailwind Surf. I remember when Gen 3 Surf was 95. It's always weird to see that this got nerfed. Ice Beam, like it's got some interesting coverage. Terra Blast, if you Terra it right, like, you know, so it's like fairy typing, but it doesn't really have any standout moves. Does it get Scald? It should get Scald, right? I'm not seeing Scald on here though, which is a problem. It does not get Scald. Giving it Scald, I think, could be a step in the right direction, so to speak.
Some point, but seeing as half of the point of Luminion is that it is so often outclassed, let's try to spice it up. First, we're going to mix up Luminion's typing. There are more than enough pure waters out there.
Sure.
We're going to add half fairy typing, which seems fitting, seeming as it already learns fairy moves like Dazzling Gleam. Water Fairy is certainly not uncharted territory, but
I would have also accepted Flying because it gets Gust and Bounce. Fairy or Flying.
it's still rather unique, all things considered, and offers many possibilities in its excellent resist of fighting and dark, as well as its dragon immunity. It also gives Luminion useful secondary stab. Next up, we're going to address those stats, and we're not going to touch the base attack, since we'd hate to take someone's ability to say nice over it, but the HP and special attack have to change. Seeing as Luminion's base stat total is so pitiful, we have no reservation in cranking both of those up by quite a bit. The HP is going up by 20 points to base 89, which is as far as it seems right for a Pokemon of Luminion's slight stature, while the special attack is going up 26 points to a solid base 95.
So what does that leave at? So that's what, plus 46? So that puts you at a 506, because base stat total of 460 to 506. I mean, it is a stage 1 card game, right? It's an evolved Pokemon. 450 is a little low. They really don't touch stats. I think that this would be, from a balancing standpoint, I think this would be great. I don't know if Pokemon would ever go for it though, and I think maybe it's doing a little too much. Like, because I mean, if you want to make it a fast water type, right? You could hypothetically like swap its defense and special attack, or its special defense and its attack, right? You trade the bulk, because 69 HP, you're not really doing anything with it to begin with. At that point, you're playing into the bulk by adding the HP. And like this, you're focusing on the special attack and the speed, especially because you're playing into that Swift Swim.
Neither of these are still very high, of course, but they're a good start.
No.
Oh, but we're not done either. We'll limit ourselves to a base stat of, say, 85. Not quite a mega evolution, but still enough to be significant. And with that in mind, we've still got 39 points to spend. So we're cranking the special defense up by 15 to a nice base 101. And with the remaining 24, we're bringing the defense to an even 100. So Lumineon is now quite tanky and even more adept at striking back at the opponent, assisted in both endeavors by its newly gained fairy typing, and the fact that at base 91 speed is actually a pretty quick mover. However, like we said, we're not just going to crank up the stats, because that just makes Lumineon a better version of a generic water, and we've got enough of those. Even with the fairy typing bestowing the obvious choices of Moonblast and Draining Kiss on it, we're going to go further with some moves to make it stand out. Leaning further into its newfound fairy status, we're also giving Lumineon some other useful moves in Wish and Heal Bell. And since its flipper seems fitting for it, we're giving it knockoff as well, plus Calm Mind. With these moves and its new bulk, Lumineon can act as a sort of water type Clefable, and its access to a speedy flip turn also provides more depth to its move pool. It could probably even run a solid offensive Calm Mind set with Hydro Pump. This new Lumineon isn't just taking on Clefable as qualities either, because we still have an ability to gift it. Its abilities are all solid, but we want to take it in another direction. So we're gifting it Shed Skin, a thematically fitting ability that gives Lumineon more utility as a status absorber. So behold our new and improved Lumineon, and
I think that Water Veil is an L. I think that it's a miss. I think that Shed Skin, while I disagree that with the ability Shed Skin, because usually more for like bug type, right? However, I understand. I think that that's the correct play though. If there's already an ability that has a chance of just curing the status condition, right? I think it better fits Lumineon. I think that while I inherently disagree with the premise of Shed Skin itself, if that's the ability, that's the effect of the ability itself makes sense. Whether you're shedding the skin or not, I mean, that's whatever, right? I do think that this makes sense. I like this.
Let us know what you think.
No, I think it's great. Before we get into Maractus, I think that it fixes it. It modernizes it. It modernizes it in a way that's able to be used as an option. The Water Fairy typing means that it's starting to share that space with Primarina. It's got the speed. It's got Swift Swim. It's got a wonderful choice of abilities, even without Shed Skin. So even if that one's your point of contention, right? Say we keep the abilities the same. You have access to Swift Swim off of a base 91 with the ability to use Tailwind, like I said. Then you also have Storm Drain if you want to go with the Gastrodon route, and especially if we're making it kind of more bulky with that HP, you can play into that and then rely on the boosts granted by the Storm Drain. The Fairy typing, I mean, once again, you can either say Fairy typing, or if you really wanted to substitute for flying type because it gets Bounce, Gust, etc. But I think, honestly, I like it. I think that it would be a good way to modernize an evolved Pokemon and make it usable. Hi, Maractus.
Now that we know what we're in for, let's continue. As we have Lumineon's fellow forgotten icon, Oxymoron, Maractus, who is in a similar need of an overhaul. Maractus actually has some amazing moves. Spikes, Knockoff, Leech Seed, Spiky Shield, and a great base 106 special attack stat alongside Stab, Leaf Storm. Sadly, the rest of its stats are abysmal, so we're going to fix those first. Maractus clearly wants to play like a supportive tank that can both dish and take hits, so we'll optimize it towards towards the end. It can keep its low speed, and its special attack doesn't really need help. So we're going to crank that bulk high. After all, cacti can withstand the desert, so they should have some tanking ability. With our 85 base stat total increase, we're going to split it semi-cleanly in 3. Maractus will gain base 27 in HP, bringing it to an excellent 102, and 28 in each defense, bringing it both up to 95. This makes it quite the respectable tank. Furthermore,
I think that Gen 5 was really polarizing because Gen 5, we saw a huge power creep. What was it? OU from Gen 4 became UU in Gen 5. Like, there was some winners. Landorus Therian, Tornadus Thunderous. God, I'm having to, like, pick Excelgor, Scavalier. Right, we had some real winners, but at the same time, we also had some Pokemon that definitely got forgotten to the sands of time. And if you look at Maractus, base 461, yeah, that special attack is pretty tasty. And, you know, defensive bulk, special defensive bulk, I mean, they're pretty much the same. You can go for an attack if you need to. This is post-physical special split. So, I mean, you don't have to worry about, you know, water being special and ground type being physical because it's Gen 5. So, I mean, like, you have things that you can do. The speed kind of runs into the Arctivist situation where you have a speed stat that doesn't quite work in Trick Room, but you have to set it up to make it worth a damn. So, I mean, you have Water Absorb, which is cool. Storm Drain, also a pretty cool ability, much like, you know, we saw with Lumineon. Chlorophyll in Sun is going to double it. It's Swift Swim, but for Sun, right? I mean, it's got interesting potential. So seeing how he's changing it, I like where he's bringing it. I like that he's modernizing the set. I like that it's bringing these stats up to help it just survive better.
We want it to stand out a little, so we're going to add some new typing. Giving it access to spikes and the desert setting it exists in, we feel making it half ground is warranted. That was pretty easy, as Maractus had the move pool, just not the stats. And by making its typing more unique, it stands out more from the horde of pure grasses populating the game. We want to take it a step further though, and really bring it from forgettable to uniquely memorable. We can do that through, again, a new ability. We settled on the thematically fitting Water Compaction, otherwise known as Palossand's ability, which raises defense by 2 upon being hit by a water type move. The water neutral grass ground Maractus would use this wonderfully, really reinforcing its status as a solid defensive Pokemon. Overall, this new Maractus is unique and solid without being overbearing.
But would Water Compaction make sense? Like, it's why Shed Skin and Lumineon, right? Would Water Compaction thematically make sense? If you hit Palossand, a sandcastle with water, what happens, right? Sand gets all moist, wet, right? Packed together a little bit. And that's the logic there. What does the cactus do, right? If you hit the cactus with water, it's not really going to do something. So what we're looking at is we're specifically looking at the buff provided by the ability, not so much the ability itself. And that becomes a point of contention when you start getting into discussions like this. Do you want to do it from the stat perspective, from the benefit it offers, and forsake the thematic portion? Or do you do the thematic portion of it, or do you do the thematic portion of it and really kind of spite the other part of it? So what I'm trying to get across is, if you have a Pokemon that is, how do I work this? If you have a grass Pokemon and you're like, oh, well, a Scovillain, right? Let's say Scovillain, right? Fire, grass type, right? And you want to give it Flash Fire, right? Where, it raises its special attack if it gets hit by a fire move, right? Even though you could look at it and go, damn, that sounds kind of cool. It's also a fire type, right? Those kind of gives it immunity to that kind of thing, right? Does it necessarily make sense? So there's 2 avenues to really approach it from here. And Tamsin, you're absolutely right in chat, where it's very easy to overwater a cactus. I like the thought process from the stat side. I disagree from the thematic side of it. And that's where the contention lies.
I'd like to have invent a new ability altogether, perhaps one that boosts the damage of its Leech Seed, but that's for another video. Oh, and we've also decided to boost Maractus' move pool by giving it Strength Stat. Amazing recovery that also weakens the opponent's attack, which is perfectly in line with this strategy.
I mean, so Chlorophyll already makes sense. I mean, and that's the thing, is if we're working with existing abilities, because you could say, well, there's an ability that'll make any sort of like HP recovery, like Ingrain or Leech Seed, increase that. We're just working with things that actually exist, right? If you're gonna give it ground typing, Sturdy wouldn't make sense. I mean, like think of what's thematic for a cactus, right? Like not the funny Avatar: The Last Airbender cactus, but when we're thinking about what's thematic for it, what makes sense for it, right? Isn't there a Pokemon Iron Barbs, right? You could once again thematically you can argue that, but if we're going for just stats and we're kind of going for thematic as well, why not something like Iron Barbs, especially because we're playing into the bulk a little bit more, right? Iron Barbs is Ferrothorn Ferroseeds, right? DOT when it gets hit by a physical move or a contact move, right? I could see something like that making a little bit more sense, because try to touch a cactus. Don't actually try to touch a cactus, but imagine trying to touch a cactus. It's prickly. It kind of hurts you when you try to do it, right? I think that would make a little bit more sense other than water compaction. But that's a subjective Kipism.
Moving on, we've got a 2-for-1 deal in Gen 3's Pika clones, Plusle and Minun. These two have a nice idea behind their design, which is that they're best friends who get stronger when used together in double battles. But even there, they're too awful to be used, and they are utterly hapless in singles. So we're going to treat this like a Mega Charizard or Mewtwo X and Y scenario. They are practically identical Pokemon, so we will take this opportunity to buff them in different kinds of ways. First off, Plusle. It's the positive charge, overflowing with passion, energy, and footwork. Both Pokemon have a solid base 95 speed, but Plusle has the higher base special attack stat. So we're going to lean into that and crank up the special attacking power big time. From 85 base special attack, we're going to bring the voltage all the way up to 130. A massive
Keep in mind, Machamp has an attack stat of 130. That is massive.
Increase of plus 45, but we're just getting started. We still have 40 base points to spend. Let's be real, we're not gonna do anything about Plusle's absurd frailty. We're leaning into that and giving those remaining 40 to speed, bringing it up to a screaming base 135.
Garchomp is 102. 135. That is zooming, my guy.
It's basically a nasty plotting Mega Manectric at this point. Now, Plusle needs a new way to hit grounds, and Grass Knot just won't do. You know what? We're going all out on this pure offensive essence and making it half ice and giving it Ice Beam. That's right, Stab Bolt Beam, and complementing it will be Aura Sphere, not Focus Blast. Do you need an in-world explanation for the half ice thing? Well, Plusle demands a rapt captive audience for its cheering, and Ice Beam will freeze them into place. Don't worry about it. What you should worry about is dealing with this new form of Plusle, because we also need to find new use for its ability. Now, it feels wrong to rid Plusle of its signature ability, so we're just going to rework it instead. There's of course going to be a lot of priority leveled at this new Plusle, given its horrendous non-bulk and plethora of weakness courtesy of its new ice typing. So what?
Well, I mean, people run Weavile, to be fair. Weavile is a dark ice type, which is a very aggressive typing to have. It's what, Qin Pao, right? It's fine to run a glass cannon. I run Whimsicott when I run VGC, right? Whimsicott. Do you know how many hits Whimsicott takes? Like 1, because I run Focus Sash. That's it. Like that's what it does. It's okay to have Pokemon like this. And like I like, if we're leaning into the glass cannon aspect, I actually really like it, especially because we're not touching the bulk. I think it's fine to have Pokemon that are kind of weird, or have Pokemon that are kind of like if you catch a Pidgeotto versus catching a Dodrio versus catching Moltres, right? Thinking about Gen 3, right? There's going to be better options or things that just do different. Like Gen 3, God, dude, Tri-Attack goes hard. Stab Tri-Attack is built different in Gen 3, especially because normal is physical in Gen 3. It's before the physical special split that happened in DPP Gen 4. So, I'm okay with Pokemon being weaker, and even then Plusle Minun kind of ta-ha-ha, Pikachu kind of clones kind of thing. And I think that this could be a way to modernize it. To what success? I don't know. But that is a massive boost to special attack and speed. Screaming at 135. Wow.
What we're going to do is take the idea of Plusle's enthusiasm for cheering and make it so strong and passionate that it gains a one-time immunity to priority moves. The plus comes from it being so overcharged that it has gained a surplus of energy to guard against these tactics. False swipe.
You know, I actually kind of like that though. It's kind of like, what is it? Like Sturdy is supposed to proc once per battle, but then you can also, if you heal back to full, you can proc Sturdy again, right? Special attack the Pokemon. Yeah, so it boosts the attack, and then it has a one-time immunity to priority. So I guess the ability would have to be looked at in, does this mean that if they try to extreme speed you, if they try to... Grassy Glide is the priority one, right, guys? Because Flip Turn was Water-type U-turn. Glassy Glide was a priority grass move. If they try to quick attack, extreme speed, Grassy Glide at you, does it negate the attack? Do you still get the damage? How does that interact with that? Because what this is trying to deal with is trying to deal with taunt, right? It's trying to deal with those priority moves that can try to mess with it, fake out, that kind of thing. So I guess, yeah, I mean, it would negate something like an Arceus Extreme Speed. It would negate a quick attack. It would negate, a Rillaboom, Grassy Glide, those kind of things. It's interesting to think about.
Game design soon coming to you. You can even give Plusle little icicles jutting out of its cheeks, and sparks of electricity are coming off of them. Now that's memorable. If Plusle was taking positivity and amping it all the way up into an extreme version of what this duel was previously, we're going to go the opposite direction with Minon's negativity. So
just have it be a Christmas Plizzle, right? It's a Christmas Plizzle. He's got a Santa hat. There, he's ice type. Grats. You've solved the ice queen.
Far that we're going to come out on the other side with something completely different. Minon will discharge so many negative ions that it will wind up devoting itself to its defensive duties. It has the higher special defense after all. Let's give it an opportunity to use that nice wish in its move pool. So we're going to pull a Gen 9. We're going to knock its useless attack stat down to 10, the same as Blissey, which gives us an extra 30 base points to play with. We're immediately dumping those 30 points into HP, bringing it to a total of 90. If Minon is gonna wish pass, it's gonna need a respectable HP stat to do it with, and it's gonna need some help in the bulk department too. Then we enhance that already excellent special defense by 45, just like Plusle received, which cranks us all the way up to 130 just the same. This makes Minon quite a...
That Pluzzle's coming in on Scald. Oh my god, because who cares if you get burned with a 10 attack stat? Wow, that's a switch-in.
With 40 points left to spend. Well, we're going to fix that heinous defense stat. Skarmory or Tangrowth it might not be, but we're going to dump the remaining 40 into defense, bringing it to a perfectly solid base 90 in conjunction with that nice HP stat. Okay, these stats are great, but what's Minon actually going to do besides take some hits and pass some wishes? And by the way, Mono Electric isn't exactly the best defensive typing in the world.
It's not.
Right,
it's
you
offensive.
are, Chief, which is why we are making Minon half fairy type. Deden and Tapu Koko who? Deden wishes it could do what we're going to suggest. As for what it will actually do, well, we're going to bolster it with support moves. It's already...
The fairy and ice typing across them make sure it kills dragons. I actually like that thematically. They become the dragon killer duo. Because you 4x what a Dragonite, or you hit from the fairy side of things. If you give this thing Moonblast, or you probably wouldn't even get Moonblast. You'd probably get like Dazzling Gleam, right? But that's still a fairy spread move with stab that you're going against Chomp with, right? Oh my god, I kind of like this. Like, wow.
got Wish and Encore, so the next step is of course Knockoff. This one move allows it to meaningfully mess with just about anything. We're also giving it Taunt, which lets Minun use its superb speed for a tank to mess with opposing defense. However, the real prize comes in the form of how we're buffing Minus. We're going to let Minus play offense while on defense, because on each switch in, the first move Minus takes direct damage from will result in the opponent taking damage as well. It will be equivalent to an electric type variant of Stealth Rock, meaning the opponent will take damage per their weakness, neutrality, or resistance to it. With electric immunes taking no damage, the possibilities for use with this are unique as they are endless.
That's a game changer. Stealth Rock, for better or for worse, changed how people play Pokemon. Like, you have to understand that, especially in singles. Like, we don't see Stealth Rock a whole lot in VGC, right? But singles, Stealth Rock changed the game. And so here's the thing. Well, that's a lot on an ability. Did you read Araquanid when it came out in Gen 7? Have you read Water Bubble? Dude, Water Bubble is bussin'. Like, Water Bubble does a lot. There are abilities in the game that do have a lot to them. Water bubbles just stack on stack on stack. And I mean, even if we're gonna go with my logic, right? If Pokemon doesn't usually touch stats, Pokemon has engaged in touching stats. So realistically, that's on the table, right? I really love this because there's so much subjectivity to this, and it's so cool. I like that we're going with the Dragon Killer duo, which would make it very appealing to a lot of Pika players, Pika clone players, right? Where you can have your Dedenne, but you also have your Puzzlemine in for Double Battle VGC, in which, hey, that Garchomp's on the field. No, it's not. We're gonna Ice Beam that. Get it out of here, right? Or the Chomp feels threatened. They swap out. They swap in their, I don't know. They swap in their Tornadus, right? That Tornadus on this ability is now taking what, a quarter of its HP in damage. Like, I kind of like it. Very frail. Like, I mean, you really play into the sword and shield, right? No pun intended. The Puzzle being the sword that just cuts through and just outspeeds a lot, and Minun, which is able to kind of keep up the pseudo stealth rock kind of thing. I like the theme that went into this. I actually really do. Do I think that Pokemon would ever do something like this? No. However, if we're all about doing this and even potentially hard coding this into what is it? Like if we had a game where we were able to modify Pokemon stats and stuff and have kind of this, Coliseum style game where we could test stuff like this is right up my alley. Like this is some spice right here. This is so cool. And I think a lot of players would hop on it as a double strategy. I like this. If this was available tomorrow and I could play this, I would 100% play Puzzlemine. It is right up my alley.
Next up, we have Charizard, which has been neglected by Game Freak for far too long. It's been an entire generation since it's got some sort of special treatment. We have yet to receive both a future and past Paradox form.
We actually do. I do love Fluttermane. Fluttermane is easily top 3 Pokemon for me. It's so good. I love it.
And we expect this to be rectified post-haste. We offer the name Iron Gosling as inspiration for the future form, except instead of a lizard dragon thing, it's a goose. And it's Fire Steel. And for good measure, when it hits the field, its battle cry is, I Quark Drive.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in. You know what? That was amazing. Oh, the Meganium. I have ranted about Meganium. I want to see how he fixes it. I want to see this.
Finally, we have a starter who actually deserves some serious buffs.
Yes.
Meganium. In our updated Meganium video, we tossed around the idea of giving it Regenerator, which is fine, but instead of leaning into the whole defensive grass thing, it'd be much more interesting to completely reinvent it as an offensive threat. The revenge of the neglected starter. So seeing as Meganium already has Dragon Tail, and more importantly, Outrage, we have decided to make it a grass dragon type. Recall that in Gen
I'd be okay with it, actually. I would actually be really okay with it being a grass dragon, actually. It would make the Applin line, Hydrapple, Applin, whatever the third one is, I can't remember what it's called, Flapple, right? It gives it some contest there, but it really starts to reinvent it. I really like where they're going with this. That would be some spice.
To OU, it had a serious niche as a swords dancer, and suddenly everything starts to make sense. Of course, we're giving it Dragon Dance as well, so you can choose which of the 2 boosting options you want to use. Double Dance sets seem possible, but you'd have to give up either a stab option or Earthquake, which is definitely not completely impossible or unreasonable. So hey, it's there as an option. We think Meganium would generally stick to Dragon Dance or Swords Dance plus 3 attacks though. Anyway, that's mostly for you to decide. We're just giving you the tools. Speaking of, if Meganium became Grass Dragon and got Dragon Dance, it simply wouldn't do to have its current stat spread. We see no inconsistency in significantly increasing its attack stat. This is a dinosaur after all, and remember how strong its distant cousins the Lonnex were in the Land Before Time. So we're taking that quaint base 82 and cranking it to base 110. Just kidding, that's not nearly enough. We're cranking it to a base 125. A little gratuitous, maybe, but Meganium suffered long enough, and we want to see that vengeance unleashed in all its metagame smashing glory. As tempting as it was to use all 85 of our allotted base stat points in attack, we also need to make Meganium speedier.
So it does underspeed Mega Garchomp, which is important to know because Mega Garchomp loses 10 speed, so it is 92. That too really puts in work. Well, and if we're going to talk about silly stats, do you know what Flareon's attack stat is? 130. Flareon has the same attack stat as a Machamp. Just put that into perspective. So when we're talking about base stat totals and stuff like that, like, you can definitely find some weird ones. What is like Perugly's like 118, Garchomp's 102, Perugly's faster. And so the way that you can actually headcanon this, and I've gone over this very briefly before, think of it like the Pokemon League deciding what stats and moves do, right? Which suddenly makes Aegislash's nerfs make a little more sense, which suddenly makes a Masquerain 10-point boost make sense, which would make a Meganium getting a retyping as a dragon type and getting increased stat totals to play with the modern Pokemon League official metagame, right? Make a lot more sense. And I like using that logic. Is it canon? No. However, it makes certain things make a lot more sense in how certain things change over the generations. Remember, for the first 3 generations of the game, RBY, GSC, Fire Red Leaf, or RBY, GSC, RSE, Fire Red Leaf Green, types were physical or special. Ground was a physical type. Psychic was a special type, regardless of what move you used. Waterfall, Surf, etc. All water moves would draw from the special attacking stat and be applied to the special defense stat. Thus, we get the physical special split in Gen 4, and now we have, Scald is a special water move, where Waterfall is a physical water move, right? So, I like using that headcanon to kind of theory craft some of this. It's not impossible, especially if Pokemon leaned into that, right? And they could do whole marketing and stuff like that regarding the Pokemon League and be the Pokemon League, right? How I was hoping Iono would see a lot more play, right? Would see a lot more like, oh, well, we have Iono, guest star Iono, quote unquote, right? Casting at events and stuff like that. I think that would have been super cool. Were they necessarily going to do it? No. Most likely they weren't. But there's so much potential to even rework Pokemon like this and to justify it as the league has decided because of outrage and stuff, we get to give Meganium the dragon typing, right? I could totally headcanon something like that in.
Plus 10 from base 80 to 90 seems completely reasonable, but we're actually making it a plus 11 boost, just
okay
so
with that.
Meganium has the edge on other base 90s.
Yeah.
Hey, base 91 is actually the same as Luminion.
Yeah.
It comes full circle. So we've spent 54 base points so far, leaving us 31. Meganium's tanky, but it could stand to be updated for power creep. So we're going to bring that base 80 HP up by 20, bringing it to an even 100, which
Pretty bulky.
seems fair.
I like it.
Oh, that leaves us 11 points? Well, 5 to each defense, making it really tanky. And the last point, we're throwing in attack, because it should be just a little bit stronger still.
Honestly, I would run the hell out of this. I think that would be super good. If you can give me a Pokemon game or simulation tomorrow where I can run this, I would test the hell out of this. A Grass Dragon with this. Hell yeah, dude. Access to screens, too. Oh, dude, we're cooking.
Wait, you say. Meganium has Outrage for Dragon Stab. Well, what about its Grass Stab? Surely the terrible Petal Blizzard isn't the answer.
It gets
and
Frenzy
no,
Plant.
it isn't. We're giving it Wood Hammer.
Yeah!
While we're at it, we don't want to force it to lock into Outrage, so we're giving it Glaive Rush. Because if Meganium can learn Swords Dance, then it makes perfect sense for this Dragon form to learn that. Yes.
So, okay. Point of contention. What glaive does it have? What does it possibly have that is even remotely a sword? Once again, we're throwing kind of thematic out the window and going for stats. However, counterpoint, do you know in Gen 4 that Slacking, that line, Slackoff, Vigoroth, and Slacking, lost Slack off the move exclusivity? And that was given to the Slowbro line. Slowpoke, Slowbro, and Slowking. They get Slack off now. So, while you can justify that being a lazy Pokemon, that kind of thing, Pokemon has also their own habit of giving previously exclusive moves to other Pokemon. Remember how Golisopod, literally one of my favorite Pokemon, we're talking like top 10 favorite Pokemon, right? Love Golisopod's design. It has emergency exit, which I hate, which is supposed to play into first impression. Doesn't Durant now get like first impression, like as of like Gen 8 going forward? Durant? So why do we still have emergency exit with Golisopod? Can we get something else? Battle armor, thematic and stat-wise, kind of meets in the middle, that kind of thing, right? No, just stuck with emergency exit as the one and only ability. I think, does Wimpod actually get a hidden ability now I think about it? Look, we've talked about Golisopod. Now I'm going to rant because I love Golisopod. It is peak design, but man, it gets shafted. No, it gets Wimp Out. Okay. So Wimpod still has Wimp Out as its only ability. It doesn't run into a Flygon situation where Trap and Chain by Brava get ability 1, 2, 3 with hidden is 3, but we only get 1, which is Levitate as Flygon. Like, I could see this though. If we're gonna be cheeky about it, I'm into this. I'm in with Glaive Rush.
That also means that theoretically Garchomp and Como-O should get this move, but that's also so not the point. Anyway, we still have an ability to give, and we have decided on adaptability, because this new Meganium has clearly adapted to its surroundings so well by leaning into its latent draconic abilities. And before you accuse us of overdoing it, yes, maybe. But also, if Crawdon...
Just make it a regional form, right? Just make it, instead of Meganium, it's Meganium, whatever Gen 10 is going to be, whatever that initial is, right? Grats, you have now solved the Meganium issue.
Can get this ability. So can our theoretical Meganium, man. We just want to see it throttle Zapdos, thinking it resists the stabs and Earthquake. Anyway, it will still need support against the Steel Flying Gang, but everything else will tremble before Meganium. What a sentence to write.
A Pokemon doesn't have to be perfect, right? What about the Steel and Flying Gang? Did you bring another Pokemon? Did you bring like a Tornadus? Oh, sorry, not Tornadus. Did you bring like a Thundurus? Did you bring something else to deal with that? Bring an Ice type? Bring the Pluzzelminen, right? A Pokemon doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, when a Pokemon is too good at too many things, that's how you start getting tier 0 formats. That's how you start getting, like, this is what you run, right? Think about Mewtwo in Gen 1, right? What did Mewtwo do? It had access to Recover. Mewtwo had access to Psychic typing, which had no weakness other than Bug in Gen 1. If you're having to run Beedrill or Parasect to counter Mewtwo, you're already in a weird metagame, right? Because due to coding, Bug Ghost didn't affect the Psychic typing that it was supposed to. It also abused Special being a single stat, right? 154 special attack and special defense is effectively what that equated to. Like, it was good at a lot of different things. It got access to what? Things like Blizzard. It had Recover, as we mentioned. It had Barrier if you wanted to. Wink, wink, False Swipe Gaming actually has an entire video up on how good was Mewtwo, actually. So, like, when you start thinking of Pokemon being perfect like that, you start running into, maybe we need to playground rules this, or we need to ban it in tournament settings, right? It's okay for a Pokemon to be good at a few specific things, 1, 2, how many specific things, right? It's okay for them to specialize. They don't have to be this force of nature that is uncounterable. And even, I don't know, we get into things like Fluttermane overusage and Incineroar overusage, and, very, very well-designed Pokemon. Not every Pokemon has to be that well designed. You can just have a flower dragon, Meganium, just throwing out outrages left and right, or Glaive Rushes, right? It can be fun, cheeky, and it can be a good time.
And that's it. It's fun getting creative with ways to make these Pokemon better. Even if some of our ideas are outlandish, it is surely preferable to the drab blandness of Game Freak's minor changes, if any are even made at all. Let us know what other forgettable Pokemon you'd fix. We might focus on them in a future video. Alternatively, let us know what you thought of our new Pokemon, or how you changed them yourselves. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. And as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well.
I liked it. I thought it was a good video. A lot of it's subjective, but that's the nature of these arguments, that subjectivity. This was such a good video. I loved this. I love the videos he brings to the table, him and his team. Like, oh, it was a good one.
Thank you so much to our platinum tier patrons. Thank you so much to Raven Daytona Ring, Sorazon Croxon, Stoneface Colin, Bingleton, Ray, Daniel Isbeast, Glitcherton, Alex Sabo, Funky, Skylaria, and Chica Chihyo for their support of our videos. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.
You know, I start to wonder if that was loud. That was an audio edit. I start to wonder if I totally lost it. That audio just threw my brain out of whack. No, it's just gone forever. I had a really good like counterpoint, but it's just gone. My submission for, hey, Pokemon that's kind of forgotten, Golisopod. Fixing that thing has been a want of mine for a hot minute. I think it's super cool, but you know, it's one of those that you understand how the game wants you to use it, but it has issues, especially with emergency exit being the way it is and not being relegated to a once in a battle situation. It's kind of like Sturdy, how if you go back to full, you can proc Sturdy again. Yeah, if you go to half health and you go above half health, and then you can proc it over and over again. So that's one for me. Definitely a little bit of a loud audio quip at the end. But honestly, I like this video. It may seem like I was contentious at certain points, but that's because a lot of this is subjective, right? And looking at it from, say, like the Golisopod battle armor standpoint, this is thematic and stat-wise, it would help some of its issues and also get rid of that emergency exit. But stuff like this is why I love videos like this, because you have so many ways that so many people would tweak things. And even then in the comments section, you know, I implore you, what are ways that you would fix these? Do you agree with these? Do you disagree with these? But most importantly, if you haven't, go ahead and check out False Swipe Gaming. Awesome content. I love watching his stuff. I don't react to everything that him and his team put out because I want people to go over and check out False Swipe Gaming. When I'm looking at Pokemon, when I'm building a team, when I'm doing something regarding Pokemon and I'm looking at, like, you know, team building, Pokemon building, etc., I go to False Swipe Gaming. That is my first stop, right? Like, I was playing through Gen 3 Leaf Green recently. Hey, Starmie's competitive history. Oh, dear God, this thing actually rocks in Gen 3. Okay, so I was right. And then it reinforced that, you know, me choosing Starmie was actually a good choice. So, just super awesome, very information heavy. Good to leave in the background at worst because, you know, like, it's good. It's good background noise, too. And you can, like, over time, get some of that knowledge seeping in your brain. But that'll be it for me. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.